This is chapter 4 in the Skinny Bones, called They're Magically Delicious. For me, the worst part about belonging to Little League is the uniforms. Every year at the first practice, the same thing happens. The coach shouts out your name, and you have to yell out what size you wear. Right in front of everyone, I mean. You have to yell either large, medium, or small. This year, there were a total of 12 kids on my team, and the way it looked to me, there would probably be 2 larges, 9 mediums, and 1 eensy, weensy, itsy bitsy, practically the size a baby would wear. Me. Every single year, I am always the smallest kid on the team. I mean it. For the first 5 years of my life, I thought I was a leprechaun. I remember when I was in kindergarten, our teacher asked us to cut out magazine pictures of what we thought we would be when we grew up. Most of the boys in my class brought in pictures of baseball or football players. A few others brought in pictures of policemen. I brought in a picture of the Lucky Charms guy. I cut it off the front of the cereal box. My teacher was pretty worried about it too. She called me right up to her desk. "Alex, what is this a picture of?" she asked. "It's the Lucky Charms guy," I said. She closed her eyes. "That's what I was afraid of." "You don't have to be afraid of the Lucky Charms guy, Mrs. Hurley," I said. "He gets on your nerves, but he's not really dangerous." Mrs. Hurley shook her head. "No, Alex. What I don't understand is why you want to be a leprechaun." "I don't. I want to be a pilot," I told her. "Then why did you bring this picture?" asked Mrs. Hurley. "Because that's what I'm going to be," I explained. "That's what you told us to do, right? You said to bring in a picture of what we were going to be when we grew up." Mrs. Hurley called my mother. As soon as I walked in the door that afternoon, Mom sat me right down and we had a talk about being small. "Alex, I know that you think you're too short. But that's only because you haven't started to grow as much as some of the other kids yet. Everyone grows at different speeds. But believe me, you are going to grow. I promise." She took me by the hand and led me to the kitchen. Then she stood me up against the wall near the corner and told me not to move. At first, I thought this was some weird new punishment she'd read about in one of those parenting magazines. But instead, she got a pencil and made a mark on the wall at the very top of my head. When I moved away, she wrote the date beside it. "Okay," she said, "just to prove to you that you're growing, we're going to measure you every 6 months. That way you'll be able to see the change for yourself." Well, all I can say is 6 months is a long time to wait, especially when you're worried about having to go flitting around the countryside dancing a jig in a green top hat. When the day finally came to measure me again, I was nervous as anything. My mother stood me up against the wall in the same spot where I'd been measured before. Then she carefully made another pencil mark. I turned to look. 1/2 an inch! I had grown almost a whole 1/2 an inch! I started jumping all over the place. Mom looked as relieved as me. "Now, do you believe me?" she asked. "Does this prove to you that you're getting taller?" "Yeah," I said. "Now all I have to do is gain some weight and grow big feet and I'll practically be a real boy." My mother threw up her hands in frustration. "I give up, Alex. I swear, you're never satisfied." Sometimes she just doesn't understand me at all. Being small is not an easy thing to be, especially when you're in Little League and you have to shout out your size in front of your whole entire team. "Alex Frankovich," called my coach. "Small, medium, or large?" No, I couldn't. I just couldn't shout small again. Not in 6th grade. I swallowed hard. Then I made my voice as deep as I could and yelled, "Large!" The coach looked up and gave me the eyeball. "Excuse me, son, but did you say large?" "Yes, sir, large. That's what I said. Alex Frankovich takes a large," I repeated. "Are you sure, Mr. Frankovich? Are you absolutely, positively sure that large is the size you usually order?" he persisted. Yup, I am. I'm absolutely positively sure. Large, that's the size I order. I order a large. Alex Frankovich orders a large." The coach rolled his eyes and shook his head. I'm pretty sure I heard him mutter the word bean brain too. But I really didn't care what he thought. The important thing was that finally, after all these years, I hadn't had to shout out the word small. I couldn't wait for the day the uniforms came in. I was sure it would be the best day of my life. I even had a dream about it. In my dream, the coach had all the uniforms arranged in just 2 piles, smalls and larges, and he was calling out names and sizes. As soon as you heard your name, you had to go to the correct pile and pick up your uniform. "Alex Frankovich, large," he announced, loud as anything. I stood up real slow and cool. Then I strolled over to the large pile to choose my pants and shirt. But when I got there, I found out that mine was the only uniform in the large pile. The only one. Get it? All the other guys were smalls. And here's where it gets good. Because when I reached out to pick up my large shirt, the whole team jumped up and started cheering because of how large I was and all. It was the best dream I ever had, I swear. And when the team uniforms finally came in, after 3 whole weeks of waiting, at least part of my dream was about to come true. I'd have my large shirt. I was the first kid at practice that day. When I arrived, my coach was already arranging everything in piles. My heart started pounding like crazy. It was just like in my dream. I felt as if I had seen into the future or something. As soon as he was finished, the coach told us to line up single file. Then one by one, we were to go to the correct pile and pick out a uniform. I have to admit, this wasn't quite as good as if he had announced my name and size, but still, all I really cared about was getting my large. As soon as it was my turn, I rushed right over and grabbed a large shirt and pair of pants. Then I sort of hung around the large pile for a while just so everyone would notice. Finally, when all the piles were gone, the coach told us to check our uniforms to make sure we had gotten the right size. That's when I heard some of the guys starting to laugh. When I turned around, I saw Randy Tubbs trying to pull his new shirt over his head. It was stuck on his ears, and his eyes were bulging out where it was cutting off his circulation. The coach helped Randy pull the shirt off. He looked inside to see what size it was. "This is a small, Randy," he said. "You're supposed to have a large." Randy shrugged. "It's all that was left," he said. Right away, the coach started looking on his list, trying to figure out what had happened. This wasn't good. This wasn't good at all. Slowly, I started backing off the field, but the coach spotted me. "Hold it, Alex. Wait," he called. "Would you bring back your uniform? Bring your uniform back here a minute, please." I felt sick. Sicker than I'd ever felt before. But there's nothing I could do except go back. Reluctantly, I handed in my shirt and pants and pointed at the tag. "See, coach? See? It's a large, just like you ordered for me," I said. The coach just shook his head. "Alex, I ordered you a small. A large would eat you up and spit you out." Then he gave my uniform to Randy and handed me the eensy-weensy, itsy-bitsy, practically the size a baby would wear, small. It was one of the lowest moments of my life. When I got home, I went to my room and tried it on. Thanks to Randy and his giant dome, the neck was all stretched out, and it drooped down to my stomach. My mother came in and told me not to worry. She said the shirt would probably shrink when it was washed. As soon as she left, my pants fell down.